Thank you, Lynn. Let me first come to the last question of yours and then go back to the regional countries. Well, I highlighted on the regional instability caused by the Taliban presence and also the fact that inside Afghanistan, also the madrasization that we are concerned about, that's going to cause a long-term instability in Afghanistan, the region. I did not talk about, and I think it was also not so much discussed in our panel today about the governance, the whole governance mood, kind of governance that Taliban launched since they have taken over. So, in addition to them as a militant group, or what Dr. Hans said as a terror group, they are also a totalitarian system. They put a totalitarian system in place. So, look, they are all kinds of suppression that they launched in that society through their governance strategies, through edicts and directives that enforce actually the characteristics of totalitarian system in that country, which itself is a threat to the both soft and hard security going forward. That human security is one of them, of course, we have seen. And then also, in a long term, that could cause a hard security threat that many of our esteemed panelists talk about that. Now, I think that is kind of an instability that I would see. Then their nature as a terror or militant group, their nature as a totalitarian system, they all make them an existential threat to the country's future and to the region. Now, why the countries in the region are actually not aligning with them, but trying to partner or at least cooperate with them in many, many instances. As I think it was Kabir mentioned, also Ambassador Durrani mentioned about that. Well, the countries in proximity, they always need each other, right? They don't have a choice in a sense that there's trade and transit going on, in a sense to contend the security threat, in a sense that there's a people's movement from country to country, and they have to take a measure in order to do the day-to-day management, So this day-to-day management requires this country, particularly the neighboring states around Afghanistan, to have some sort of cooperation, like Uzbekistan right? Uzbekistan start with the notion of economic reintegration. That was a foreign policy of the Uzbekistan towards the region, that let's promote peace and security through regional integration, right? And that they started actually supporting Taliban from day one, facilitating humanitarian aid, facilitating development program, causing a lot with the Taliban, because for them, I mean, the narrative is let's promote peace and let's contend the security threat from Afghanistan through economic reintegration. The same applies to Iran. Iran hosted Mullah Baradar during even before the Doha agreement was signed, with the perception that they would be next power. So we have to deal with the water, we have to deal with the border, we have to deal with the people's movement. So let's connect with them, right? And the most important thing, to contend the security threats, that is the interest of all these regional countries. And going forward to Tajikistan, which Tajikistan actually recently, they're trying to also accept the fact that okay, now we have to really cooperate with the regime in order to sustain, in order to contain the security. So I think it's a very opportunistic short-term vision or short-term agenda that these countries in the region have in order to manage day-to-day activities. As Kabir has, I think, articulately mentioned, and that's my perception also, that there is no general regional consensus toward the Taliban. And there is no long-term strategy towards the Taliban. Why? Because these countries also know that the Taliban are not causing any stability in Afghanistan. There's no inclusive governance or government. There is suppression of human rights, particularly women's rights, which 50% of population are not deprived from their basic rights. And there is also no assurances from the Taliban that they have cut ties with the other terror groups. So they all are signals of security threats that these countries know. So the only option they think at this point, in order to cement their short-term policy, is engagement. Right? Let's engage with them. That India recently started. Let's engage with them in order to contend security threats. Now, you said what has to be done? There
Mm.
are alternative strategies. I think Ambassador mentioned that, and I quite agree with him. There is no appetite at all, right, to intervene in Afghanistan cause anymore. Here in Washington, we see no, nobody wants to even raise that. Afghanistan is no more in the news. Afghanistan is no more the talks. No one really have the appetite to intervene in a crisis. It seems there's kind of a tiredness too, until there's something big happens, and then people turn their eyes towards the country. Other than that, there is no appetite at all. But there are some soft strategies that sometimes we try to count on the UN, but it's not really a good strategy to count on the UN at this point. There should be a regional mechanism, the idea of regional mechanism to be launched in the region. And the regional mechanism, there has been a lot of talks, by the way, from last 4 years, who to take the lead on that regional mechanism, how to be facilitated. But then there are players like Russia, Iran, and China in the region, that they don't like any other intervention to create a regional mechanism. For example, SCO is there, Moscow platform is there, and Iran has its own kind of regional. So this country has already created their regional mechanism, and they think that we are going to solve it and solve the issues. But I think their formats, including the SCO, including the Moscow format, they haven't produced any concrete outcome so far. So for me, I have written extensively on this platform from last 4 years whenever they were convened, and I have all those analysis why they haven't proved to be successful, and why there is need for a regional mechanism to be in place in order to create a regional consensus. Because this country-based opportunistic approach, Taliban will benefit from this, as Kabir mentioned. Taliban will really benefit from this 101 country relationship that they have. And they are using, by the way, they are using their connection with the terror groups or militant groups. They are using their ties with them as a leverage in
Yeah.
negotiations. So as Ambassador mentioned, and I think it was also Dr. Hans mentioned about the positioning thing. I mean, in any negotiation, they talk from position of power rather than interest-based negotiation. So as a conflict resolution student, when you talk from, when any group and a party in a negotiation table, when they talk from position of power, not the interest, then that negotiation doesn't end to any successful outcome. And we have seen in Taliban Doha negotiation, we have seen recently and Qatar and Turkey with Pakistan, and we're going to see, and we have seen also in the Doha process, that all were failures, because they always use their the tactics that they have been using from past, and their ties as a leverage in all these negotiations that happen. So in a nutshell, joining the rest of the cohort here, I'm also extremely pessimist about the future of the security and stability both in Afghanistan and the region. Why? For two reasons. First, originally the nature of this group, the Taliban regime, that is problematic, that is challenging, that is dangerous. And both internally for the stability and security of Afghanistan, and that will expand beyond the border, and as Dr. Hans mentioned, and globally as well. So I think keeping all this point, we wouldn't see any change until there would be a change in an entire system, which would be a creation of a regional mechanism, and also internally in Afghanistan, a political process that many also right now they are talking about it, a political process that shapes and reshape the future government in Afghanistan. So I think there should be an internal process, and there should be a regional process, and there should be a kind of a simultaneous move for these two processes to go in order to find out a solution for the problems that we are talking. I stop there. Thank you.